January 30th, 2005, I turned 17. I also got my big diagnosis. You see, I had learned all the important skills in school, like how to deal with my problems, solving them with the quadratic equation. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. Or how to handle really important change, like when a solid moves from a liquid to a gas. Or how to remember really important facts, like in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But fuck that guy. But what I hadn't learned to deal with was the feelings that had been building inside of me for the last 17 years. You see, when I was 5, I would eat my first and still great love, French fries, down to everything but the nub. Anything my fingers touched would be left in a sad carnage pile on the plate. When I was 7 and started walking to the bus stop, I would be very careful not to step on any cracks. And if someone noticed or pointed it out, I would turn it into a game or make a joke. You see, I learned very early on that deflecting with humor was going to be super on brand for me. When I was 9 and started playing soccer, I selected the number 2 for my jersey. There was something soothing about the number, quieting, even if I couldn't name it yet. When I got to middle school, I had anxiety, like we all have anxiety in middle school, pressure to fit in, to make friends. I played sports, and the feeling I would get before every soccer game or track meet or dance performance wasn't excitement. It was fucking dread. My fear of failure was sometimes so great that I wouldn't even shoot the ball, even if I knew I could make the shot. Side note, I am still single, so apparently I'm still working on that shoot your shot thing. When I got to high school, these feelings, these quirks, started to compound upon themselves, and things got worse. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but numbers became my thing. I would have to repeat something, a step or a phrase a certain amount of times, or I was convinced something really bad would happen. 2 was a good number, and so 4 was the best, because it was 2 times 2. 3 was a bad number, and so 9 was the worst, because it was 3 times 3. I started answering questions wrong on tests. If the answer was C, the third letter of the alphabet, I would have to pick B or D, the second or the fourth. I was on the swim team, and I could only come up for air in certain patterns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I crashed my car because I had to turn the wheel a certain amount of times. And I told my parents I was just texting and driving like everybody else, which was ridiculous because I had a Nokia brick phone and T9 was my shit. I could have been texting and flying an F-45 and I would have been fine. Not that I'm recommending that, but that's what we do when we're ashamed and we want to hide something that we can't explain. That winter, there was a snowstorm, and I'm not sure I'll ever really be able to put into words the restlessness inside my brain, but nothing could calm my anxiety. I had to stand in place for 2 hours to repeat a phrase 256 times, which was 16 times 16, which is 4 times 4, which is 2 times 2. I called my dad and said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not okay. I think that was the first time I had ever said those words in my life. I am not okay. My dad fixes things for a living, but he didn't know how to fix this. We went to see a therapist who diagnosed me with a classic case of OCD. This same therapist would tell me months later that I actually had the worst case of OCD that he had ever seen or been able to treat, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're already feeling irreparably broken. I mean, hey, at least I was the best at being the worst. I wish this was the point in the story where everything got better, but that's not how life works. The next few months were a blur. I started missing school and failing all my classes. I could only breathe in certain patterns. I lost 25 pounds because for a weird point in time, I could only eat 2 bites of every meal, or I was convinced something awful would happen to my family. I took my SATs and wrote my SAT essay using only 4-letter words, 4 words per sentence, answering half the questions B when I knew that they were C. My sister, who is still my best friend, saying, "Why can't you just be like you used to be?" My mother, in a moment of frustration, saying, "If we didn't love you so much, we would send you away." I remember not wanting to die, but not wanting to have to wake up, to have to live inside this brain that had to overthink so fucking much. The way just breathing had become exhausting. I lost a lot of friends, and I can't say I blame them, because what the fuck was going on with Allie Moore? But I'll never be more grateful for the lessons that I learned, because to learn at such a young age that it's who shows up when you have nothing to give that matters the most. Slowly, things got better. I found a therapist I could connect with. I learned coping skills, and I learned a lot about myself until eventually it wasn't something on my mind anymore. I'm 31 now, and I haven't had an obsessive compulsive thought in well over a decade, but it was a slow process. I want to take a second to just recognize the privilege that I had in having supportive parents who didn't know what was going on, but tried, who Googled or got books, who could afford to take off work to take me to appointments and could afford to give me health insurance. I'm not sure I would be standing here today if that wasn't the case. I work in youth development now, and there are so many young people trying to face mental health issues by themselves. I had never even heard of obsessive compulsive disorder growing up, besides jokes about people who clean too much, and I am messy as fuck. I'll never forget the relief that I felt the first time I read a book about OCD and learned that these things that I felt so shameful about, that I felt I had to hide from the world, were really some of the most common manifestations of obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder. And so the more I had been feeling, the more I didn't understand, which only gave me more anxiety and made things worse. My favorite thing in the world now is speaking to a young person who's going through something and letting them know that their anxiety or depression or bipolar or OCD can be a part of them, but it's not all of them. Our stories are a part of us, and they're in all of us. Wouldn't life be a little more beautiful if we just started sharing them?